having a bit of a laze and a catch up on some stories. Talking about being lazy, have you ever heard the story about Jack? I'm sure you've heard about the Queen of Hearts, Jack, that stole the tarts, and you've probably heard of Jack and the Beanstalk. In fact, most old tales have a fair maiden and a hero called Jack. And our story is no different, except this Jack is lazy Jack. Boy, is he lazy. His mum had had him when she was a little bit older and didn't think she was going to have any kids, so she spoiled him quite a lot. And then his dad died, leaving the two of them, and so she spoiled him even more. And it was fine when he was little, but then he ate and he grew, and he ate and he grew, and he ate and he grew, like only a teenager can. And because he'd never had to help out around the house, he still didn't help out around the house, even at this size. All summer he would lie under the apple tree and sunbathe, and all winter he would sit by the fire and keep warm, and he never tried to help. His mum eventually got fed up of this. She was doing a lot of work. She was spinning and she was weaving, and her poor fingers were worked to the bone, but she couldn't do any more on her own. And eventually one Monday she said to Jack, "That's it. If you don't go out and earn your keep and bring some money into this household, then I'm chucking you out and you're gone for good." That made Jack sit up and think. So the next day he hired himself out to the local farmer. Now we are talking a long time ago, so his wages for the day were a penny. And he worked very hard for his penny. In fact, he ached in places he didn't know he had. But at the end of the day, he got his shiny penny. Now that was fine, except Jack had never had money before. Oh, this is fun. I've got some money. I earned it myself. But he didn't realise just how easy it is to lose. And as he jumped over the brook, he flipped his coin, and instead of catching it, he went over the bridge into the stream and down into the gravel and gone. His mum was not best pleased. "You stupid boy! You should have put it in your pocket!" "Oh, I'll do that next time." So on the Wednesday, he hired himself out to the local dairy farmer, and as his wages for the day, he received a jug of milk. What was it Mum had said? Oh yeah, put it in my pocket. So that's what he did. And he made his way merrily home, and the milk in the jug made its way merrily out of the jug and down through his trousers and along the path. And by the time he got home, all he was left with was an empty jug and a soggy bottom. Well, his mum, "You stupid boy! You should have carried it on your head!" "Oh, I'll do that next time." So the next day, he went back to the dairy farmer and he let him go into the cheese factory. And he worked really hard churning the cheese, and he made the curds and he made the whey. And as a reward at the end of the day, he got a nice big round cream cheese. What was it Mother said? Oh yeah. On his head it went. Jack made his way merrily home, and by the time he reached home, half the cheese had fallen off and the other half was matted in his hair. "Oh! What am I going to do with you, you silly boy? You should have carried it in your hands safely." "Oh, I'll do that next time." So the next day he went to work for the baker, and he really wasn't very good, so the baker didn't want to give him any wages, but he felt sorry for the lad, so in the end he gave him a nice big fat tomcat. And Jack, being a good boy and doing exactly as his mother said, picked up the tomcat and tried to carry it in his hands. which lasted for about 5 minutes before the cat started to scratch and bite and eventually jumped out of his hands. Once again, his mother was just beside herself and said, "You should have put a string round its neck and dragged it behind you." What do you think Jack said? "Oh, I'll do that next time." The next day he went to work for a butcher. Now this was Saturday, and the thought of having some wages coming in was really good. And he'd worked really hard, and so the butcher gave him a nice leg of lamb. And being a good boy and doing exactly as his mother said, he tied a string round it and he dragged it behind him. You can imagine that by the time he got home, he had all the stray cats and dogs in the village following him. The meat was dusty and, well, what was left of it was dusty. There wasn't much really, because all the cats and dogs had had their bit on the way. And his poor mother. "I was really looking forward to that meat. Now I'm going to have cabbage soup again." Come Monday, he went out to work again. "Now then, you should have put the mutton on your shoulders." "Oh, I'll do that next time." So he went out to work for another farmer, and this time the farmer said, "You've worked really hard and I really think you should have something that you'll appreciate so you can take home the donkey." Yeah, Jack listened to what his mother said. It was extremely difficult and extremely heavy to pick up that donkey, but on his shoulders it was going to go. Now, as it happened, on Jack's way home, there lived a very rich merchant and his daughter. Now, she was beautiful, lovely lass, but she had never ever spoken. No one knew why. But the doctors had said there was no reason, and if somebody could just make her laugh, then that would surely break the spell and she would be able to talk. He'd spent loads of money getting jesters and fools, and he'd even sent to Muncaster for their fool, but none of it had worked. She just sat there in silence. And she sat there this day looking out of her window when she saw the strangest sight she'd ever seen. Walking along the road was Jack, limp hair and sticky out limbs, and that would have been enough to make her smile, I'm sure, but this day he was trying to carry a donkey on his shoulders. As he strained under the weight, she felt a strange twitch at the side of her mouth. And then a bubbling started to happen deep down. And before she knew what was happening, she laughed and she laughed and she laughed and she laughed till the tears ran down her face. Oh, the rich merchant was so happy. And yes, sure enough, now she could talk. Jack and the lass got married. That was wonderful. Did that make Jack not lazy? Did it make him industrious? Did it make him hard-working? Nah. Jack was still lazy Jack. Only now he had 2 women to dote on him and spoil him in very, very rich comfort. See you again next time.